I'm gonna miss you. Boo hoo, boo hoo, boo hoo, boo hoo.
Squid's taking it real hard. I find it funny today, for today's video, we're not talking about Dragon Quest, blue hedgehogs, or plumbers that go wahoo. We're not talking about any of that today. We're talking about Sony and the PlayStation. And I typically don't talk about them on this channel because, quite honestly, in the most recent years, I haven't been that interested in many of their games. And I think the last game I got from them was Gran Turismo 7 because that's the only thing I'm a sucker for, racing simulators. But today is a special occasion because Lion Crying Jim Ryan is leaving Sony Interactive Entertainment, and I couldn't be much more happier because, quite honestly, fuck him. This man represents everything that I hate about Sony nowadays. From the fact that they moved their headquarters from Japan over to California, and that changed the whole culture of PlayStation, including the fact that they started censoring games, a whole different topic right there. The fact pricing of goods from PlayStation just overall increased from the games to just recently PlayStation Plus. And overall, the whole initiative to push for live services is something I just never been enthused about at all. There's just a lot to not like about this man, and a lot of these decisions were all spearheaded by this guy Jim Ryan. And for today, we're going to be talking about why I believe this man was let go, because people who were talking about this man got retired, he's living his life right now, he wants to be with his family in Europe. It's so hard for him to fly to multiple countries. I just find that to be all bullshit, absolutely. And the reason's quite simple. There's just been way too many blunders from Jim Ryan in 2023, and despite the successes he's had with Sony, they just wanted him to go, so they basically sweet-talked him into retiring. It's time for him to move on, what have you. Just leave Sony. And let me tell you, something like this has been done on a multiple of occasions. Just read Bob Iger's book, for example. But nonetheless, let's dive right in. And the first reason is very simple, and it's the failed attempt to block the Microsoft acquisition of Activision Blizzard. As we know already, Sony's been very instrumental in trying to block this deal. Jim Ryan will fly to the FTC, to the CMA, and just cry his eyes out that it would be bad if Call of Duty left PlayStation. Sony would be nothing without Call of Duty. It would be so horrible.
Wow, what a waste. The poor children.
And it's just nothing but Crimea River bullshit. And as we know, Sony has basically failed of trying to block this deal with Activision Blizzard. This deal is most likely going to close by next week or the week after. And Sony ended up signing a deal with Microsoft to get 10 years of Call of Duty, which funnily enough is actually worse than their previous deal that they were previously offered if they didn't go out their way and try to block this deal. As that original deal, even though it was for 5 years, I believe, contained all Activision Blizzard games. So it's just funny to me, if they actually played ball, they would have gotten a better deal, and ultimately they just got a worse deal this time around. And I personally believe the board saw that and said, okay, we need to do something about Jim Ryan because he's definitely giving us worse deals than ever before. And the funny thing about all of this is history does repeat itself, as something similar to this has happened within Sony. And even though I would admit this is a much more extreme degree of Sony Corp going out their way and stepping on the neck of another executive within their company, it all has the same patterns. As what happened in 2014 was a major email leak happened within Sony Pictures where emails from executives, producers, directors, screenwriters, actors, you name it, all got leaked out. And the most scathing thing for the heads of Sony was an email saying that Disney actually offered to buy the rights to Spider-Man for a lucrative sum of money. So much money to the point where Sony could actually see massive profits for 3 movies with this deal alone. And as we know, Sony Pictures turned down that deal, and Sony Corp was not happy when they saw those emails. They immediately flew to Hollywood, told the executives of Sony Pictures, gotta make a deal with Disney. And they did. And the head of Sony Pictures, being Amy Pascal, was kicked out the company. She was still allowed to oversee the Spider-Man projects on the MCU. But from this instance alone, we know Sony can pull their weight and basically get someone out if they really need to, if they're really fucking up. But like I said, this is a much more extreme degree here, because of the fact there was a much more bigger deal here that they really fucked up on. What happened with Spider-Man was much more different to what happened with Activision Blizzard, to the point where Sony Corp decided just to sweet-talk Jim Ryan to retiring, in my opinion. But overall, you still see the same beats, both ends ended up getting a deal nonetheless, and executives were told to leave. But moving on, we have the second reason, and I personally believe Sony sees Jim Ryan resting on his laurels and they want someone to continuously be competitive in this gaming market. As we know already, the PlayStation 5 has been doing very well. Over 30 million units in the amount of time it's been out in the market is definitely no slouch. And the series consoles are nowhere near where Sony is. But still, nonetheless, I think Sony Corp wants Jim Ryan to be much more competitive just so they maintain their top spot. And 2023 has proven he's really just resting on his laurels. The PlayStation Showcase that came out this year was pretty much a disappointment. Most people who were claiming that this was going to bury Microsoft alive were straight all wrong. Not that many first-party games were shown off, and the third-party games were either stuff we knew or just from smaller developers. And the products that have come out this year from PlayStation VR 2, which I don't hear anyone talk about, speaks for itself. And PlayStation Portal, even though the recent pre-order numbers show that the system's selling out and what have you, you can't go one step into the internet to see a bunch of controversy surrounding the PlayStation Portal, from the fact that you can't use your own Bluetooth headsets, or the fact you can only play this at your home. Basically a Wii U gamepad in a sense. And of course we have the recent controversy where PlayStation Plus prices are increasing to a ludicrous amount. I believe up to 30%, which is insane.
Hello, I like money.
And I personally believe Sony sees all of this. They look at this, they see a person resting on his laurels, and on top of that, they also see a perception from the customer base that Sony's becoming much more greedy. We already know that they've increased prices on games, and now they're increasing prices on PlayStation Plus, and also they're having products that only use proprietary hardware. Hence why I believe this is another reason to why Sony went up to Jim Ryan and said, hey, I think it's time for you to retire. And finally, the third reason. And the funny thing about this is I'm actually vindicated on all of this right here, and it's the live service games. I personally believe Sony does not see a future within these games as service games. As we know already, the plan from Jim Ryan is to release 5 of these games as service games and at least have one of them be majorly successful. It's part of the reason why they went out their way and bought Bungie. But as we know already from these games as service games, these are really risky ventures to get into. Either you do really well like Fortnite, or you crash and burn like Anthem. And we've just seen way too many examples of these games as service games crashing and burning. And we've seen recent reports where Sega's canceling their own games as service games, and I talked about Fortnite being successful, but we've also seen reports where Epic is laying off people because these games are not making the money that they used to make. And recently we got a report from Bloomberg that reports the heads of Sony are not too confident about these games as service games Jim Ryan is making. So when you combine all of this, it's no surprise they want Jim Ryan out, they want to move in a different direction that's probably less riskier than games as services. And those are the reasons right there. I just find it funny that all these people want to cope and talk about the fact that, oh, Jim Ryan's retiring, he's moving on to a greater life, he wants to be with his family and what have you. It's hard for him to fly in multiple countries, jet lag's a real bitch, you know? But I provided examples here that are major fucking blunders. And people just want to cope. That's just the funny thing to me. At the end of the day, some people want to live in this fantasy life and believe that Jim Ryan has been the saint of gaming and what have you. But I look at the facts, I look at the reality, and it's pretty clear to me Sony wanted him out and they sweet-talked him into retiring. Hope you guys enjoyed today's video. And let me guys know what you think about Jim Ryan leaving down in the comments below. And if you like this video, just consider hitting that like button. And if you want to see more videos, then these videos should be here just for you to watch. To which I believe you'll get a good kick out of those. See you guys on the next one. Take care.